present an update on where we are, particularly with the sewer system. And then our emergency management directors will talk a little bit about our preparations, some of the lessons learned from last year. So we will, first of all, I'd like to just take a minute and introduce people who are here. The team up here at the head table, Jeff Walker, who is chair of the selectmen at in Newbury, as you know. Thank you for being here. Jamie Tucolo, most of you know him. He is our airbag expert and the one who saved our system last winter, even though it took several weeks to do so. And we'll talk about what additional fixes have been happening with the airbag and sewer system since our last meeting. This is our acting marshal, Mark Murray, who is also our emergency management director, who is also, is acting marshal. Beside him is our DPS director, Tony Fernari, who I think you've met before, our Chief Leclerc, Chris Leclerc, who is also our emergency management director, and Chief of Newbury, Mike Riley, who is also the emergency management director for Newbury. In addition, I'd like to recognize Tracy Glaze, town administrator for Newbury. Thank you for being here. And I see we have two city councilors, of course, Allison Hartquist, Ward 1 city councilor, at least for another couple months. And I think as residents of Plum Island, we should give Allison an amazing round of applause. And our state rep, Jim Calpers, has just joined us. Please join us at the head table. Thank you, Jim. And I see City Councilor at Large, Barry Connell, is also with us. In addition, some of the members of our DPS team who you have met before, who have worked on other issues on the island. Dan Lynch, could you stand, please? Water supervisor, and our deputy director, Wayne Amaral, and our city engineer, John Eric White. So I appreciate their being here tonight too, in case questions arise. As you know, we gave you a presentation back in June, I believe it was, where we went over all the problems that happened with the sewer system. So tonight we're going to give you an update. Jamie will start in just a couple minutes, give you an update on where we've come since that period of time. I also would like to thank the legislature for putting $50,000. We haven't quite been able to get our fingers on it yet for some work on the sewer system, and we'll be talking about that in a couple minutes also. One question that I'm sure will come up is where are we with our case with the Attorney General? And as you know, in conversations we've had before, that we had been at the table with them for 2.5 years, trying to work through a settlement agreement. One of the final pieces that we did during our last meeting was that they had been out here trying to fix hydrants. We had identified 16, they fixed 6, they're doing really shoddy work, and we said to the Attorney General, we don't want them out here anymore. Have them go away, and what we want is a settlement so that we can have an account set up that we can then use our own staff working together with Newbury to repair what needs to happen on the island, and then bring in other contractors should we need to fix things. We have had several exchanges in the recent weeks, so we are getting closer to a settlement. And of course, since this is all highly confidential, I can't give you any more detail than that. But as soon as we have a firm offer on the table, we will go into executive session with our city councilors as well as Water and Sewer Commission to figure out where, if we're ready to move forward and accept that settlement. So there will be more comments on that issue in the hopefully within the next month. We'll keep you up to date on that. So I'd like at this point to turn it over to Jamie Tucolo, who will walk us through a few slides to sort of just recap what happened quickly last winter. I don't think any of us want to spend a lot of time talking about what happened last winter and how we've addressed some of the fixes to the system going forward. I ask that if you have questions about his slide presentation, let's save them to the end until he finishes. Thank you. Jamie?
Thanks. So everybody remembers the winter of 2015. There's a couple of bullets that just extreme snowfall in a short period of time, I mean, literally shut down the state of Massachusetts, not just the island. We were unable to locate much needed diversion valves and gauge valves, which basically we need those to find where the leak is coming from, what portion of the island is coming from. Without those, we're basically walking around blind. We didn't know the exact locations of every single valve pit, cane on the island. I mean, we didn't have all of that information. Communication with the residents on the island. You know, you guys are wondering, can I use my water? Can I not use my water? Who's on, who's off? And then the amount of time it took us once we found the valves to actually defrost them, de-ice them, rendering them useful for us to actually tap onto them before we go and find a leak. We're completed preparing for this upcoming winter. We've cleaned all the manholes of all the debris on the bottom, and all of the manholes have been insulated. The covers have been insulated.
As if you remember, we had probably 200 left to do before winter hit last year, so they've all been done.
All of the manholes, diversion valves, candy canes have all been GIS. So we now have the locations of everything that we need on the island. Along with working with MVPC, we came up with the new map books, which shows us Merrimack Plan. Actually, Gerard Witten, who works for Merrimack Valley, is right over there. He's who I've been working closely with on coming up with this. So we now have in our utility trucks map books of all locations of everything needed on the island. We're still in the process, but we're 95% completed with a mobile app that allows us to, and I'll show you what that is in a minute. Basically, if you guys had questions on if you can or cannot use your facilities at that any time, you log onto the city website, and it's a live feed that either tells you you're good or you're not so much. We're all set for stock for this upcoming winter. We have everything on the shelf ready to go. Maintenance and other work that we've completed is the collection tank and all the ways clean that we do every year. We raised, if you guys notice on Northern Boulevard, some of this kind of look like speed bumps. That's, we're raising the diversion valves to have them not sit underwater, which in the wintertime freezes and takes an ample amount of time for us to actually get to. November 2nd, which is Monday, the airback is going to come out here and do the annual winter timing of the system. This is what we're trying to prevent by doing this. Hopefully it works. The infamous candy cane. There was so much confusion last year on the word candy cane and what the purpose of it is. So I want to clarify it for you guys, really, really quickly. Candy cane is on every individual property. If you do not know what your candy cane is, take a walk outside in your yard and find it. It's in your yard, it's a white candy cane looking thing. If you're new to the island, it's kind of like what a septic tank looks like. It's just an upside down candy cane. Some of them are painted the same color as your home, some are painted the same color as a tree, but it's on your property. If the residents could work with us as far as keeping debris, snow, and anything else around the candy canes free, it allows us to find leaks quicker. It doesn't shut the system down. None of that comes into play. What it does is basically when that pod goes off and the vacuum is called, that enters the atmospheric air when it's going from negative to positive pressure. That candy cane will make a noise every time the pod is clear. Every single time. If you hear it for more than 5-6 seconds, then there's an issue there. If the residents call us, we can fix the problem quicker. If we have to go and look for these problems, that's what takes the longest time.
Can you say that again, Jamie? I think this is really an important point, you know, in terms of if you happen to be walking by your sewer vent, the candy cane, and you hear that it's just continuing sound coming out of it, that's a problem. That means that there's a problem. That's when you pick up the phone and you call. Does everybody understand that? That's really, really important. And to keep it covered, open, uncovered.
And if you have a neighbor that you know leaves to the window, maybe you guys can work something out that you can check their candy cane as far as if there's a snowstorm that's 18 inches plus that's going to cover some of these candy canes. You know, you could do them a solid and do the city a solid by just, you know, doesn't have to be much, just clear something and just clear it up. Just enough so when we're walking by we can actually hear it. It's, that would help out tremendously. So here's some of the things that we've done. You probably can't even see that, but that's the old markings that we use in the road to help us indicate where the valves are. These are the markings we are now using. They're more like a fluorescent. At night when you're driving down the street, we can see them. They kind of have a reflective coating inside of the paint. This is what I was just telling you folks, is this is what the diversion valves looked like before, and this was not even during a rainstorm, this was just a little spit outside. That the diversion valves are actually right there. Now in the wintertime, that becomes a block of ice. So we're out there with the sternos trying to burn through the ice so we can actually get into the pit. So what we've done is we've raised them. Now those are them right there, and the water kind of goes around in certain areas of the island, mainly on Northern Boulevard. We are going to do it. We are going to do some more. We're just waiting on a few things. This is what the old map book used to look like. This is what we had in the trucks that we used to find the leak. The information was really minimal. These orange dots were the candy canes, and then the green lines and the black dots were the valve pits and just the main lines. That's pretty much it. We didn't really know who went where and what went where, and down here was kind of confusing. Since then, this is what it looks like now. We call this the Fruity Pebble method. So, in the trucks, you see red, well, I'm just going to show you these ones here. 3 red homes. These 3 red houses tie into that red can. Next one down, you see 2 green houses. Those 2 green houses tie into that green can. So every house, we now know goes into one, like a certain can. We now know where the diversion valves are. We now know all these hot pink ones are the candy canes. And there's addresses associated with them. So when we're driving down the street, there's a diversion valve right here. We know it's on the corner of whatever street this is. It's got to be right there. Now, also that goes with this is the mobile application that I just spoke to you about. We have a locator. So if I'm walking around this area right here and it's a blanket of snow and I still can't find that valve, I hit the locate button and it kind of directs me where I need to go. So that will be up and running by the 3rd week of November. It's up and running now, still in the draft form. This is what the mobile application is going to allow you to see and us to provide to you. This will be on the City of Newburyport's website. I've done a couple of examples just so you can see. Green is good. Okay? You always want to see green. If you do not see green, if you see yellow, yellow is please use your water sparingly. We're having an issue at this time on 72nd Street. Just please refrain from doing dishes. Use your facilities when needed, but sparingly. Red. If you see red, do not flush your toilet. Do not run your water. Do not do laundry. Don't take a shower.
And you will not be expected to go here and learn the information, but it will be, remember last year we kept sending out notices and saying, okay, now from 53rd on, you can use water. And then all of a sudden, the vacuum pressure would change, and we say, oh, no, we have to put another announcement up saying now we're back to 48th Street. And we can, it kept moving. So this way, what we can do is we will still use the communication systems that we have, and we'll talk about that with emergency management in a minute, but you'll be able to track the repairs to the system through the website in terms of when you see the green come back up. Does that make sense? So it becomes much more of a visual system for you as opposed to us to keep posting, what streets can and cannot. You'll see exactly where the vacuum pressure is back.
Now, during a regular call, everybody's gonna probably be on edge this year because of what happened. In the middle of January, when you get a call, a standard everyday call, you're not gonna see this. You're gonna see green like always, because you're gonna get your calls and we're gonna go and we're gonna answer. This is for worst case scenario. That's why this was created. So, I'm just trying to clarify to you guys that you probably will have to use this, but in case you do, it's available to us. MIT. So the mayor had contacted MIT in regards to trying to see if we can use their knowledge of just being MIT with incorporating it into the airbag system in which we have. We've spent probably about 20 hours with the folks from MIT. We are currently doing a couple of mock situations. The results have not come back yet, but we are working to figure something out for freezing conditions on the island. And with that, I'm open to questions.
Yeah, could you elaborate a little bit on the diversion valve, what that's all about?
Sure. So what the diversion valve does is there's a diversion valve and a gauge valve. So what we do when there's a leak, we come onto the island, we go to the older way, we figure out which line is coming from. There's 4 lines on this island: northern outer, northern inner, Old Point, and Sunset. Once we figure out what line the leak is on, we then start closest to the station and work our way out by going to the diversion valves, popping the diversion valves. We shut it down, we put a vacuum pressure gauge on the gauge valve, and that will indicate if the leak is to the left or to the right. Then, once we figure out we're in that area, we turn it back on, take the valve off, and proceed to walk up and down the streets. Yes?
A question about clearing the candy canes. We cleared our neighbors who was in Florida all winter. When she came back, she said, I turned the water off for the winter, you didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
Is she wrong, or is...
So, there's no wrong answer on that one. Basically, you need one candy cane exposed for that valve pit to breathe, and for that valve pit to make noise. So she is theoretically correct if you guys tie into the same pod. And until, I'll verify that you guys tie into the same pod. If that's the case, as long as yours is cleared up, yeah, that's fine. Yes?
You may have said that, how did we figure out who we share with?
I can tell you that.
So what, we call you or what?
Yeah, just request it and I'll answer you.
And then just about neighbors who were away for the winter.
Yeah.
So if we clear ours, we're okay. If they're on somebody else's, then that person has to figure it out. It's just difficult. It was very hard for us to
Yeah.
get our own
Yeah.
cleared, and then to take on somebody else's where we couldn't even get up their driveway.
Right.
We were having trouble just keeping cleared out.
Totally understand. But I'm thinking that, we all witnessed probably one of the most historic snowfalls in history of Massachusetts. I don't see that happening again. However, if it does, maybe you can contact another neighbor or contact the city. As long as yours is cleared off, again, as long as yours is cleared off, it's on the homeowner. If they're in Florida and you guys are in the same pod and yours is cleared, you should be
It'll
good.
be okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Is the number that we call this 4654424 number? If we have any problems, is that the number that we want to call?
Go to the yellow sheet which you pick up on your way out. That we want you to put on your refrigerator. That will identify all the numbers of where you call.
And what, do you want a list of volunteers this week? Do you need a list of people who will volunteer when you need some people to walk around or anything that comes up?
Not at this time, no. Thank you. Yes, sir.
On those vessels where you have more than one vent, why don't you plug up a couple of them, and so that you have more velocity going through the one that's remaining? And it's much easier to find.
Repeat the question, I'm sure they couldn't all hear.
So he's asking if there's a couple of people on one pod, why don't we plug up two of the candy canes and just basically rely on one? The problem with that is a threefold thing. If everybody's home, all three homes are up and running, everybody needs their own breather. You can't just rely off of one because it can't handle three homes. If they're not home at the time and they're not using their water, then it's fine.
You don't really need that vent.
You do?
Last year, when you turned back on the sewer at
Yes.
my house, it worked fine.
Where do you live?
On Reservation Terrace.
Yeah.
And the two vents on that system were frozen solid for 2 weeks
Yeah.
after it was turned on. We had no problems.
Yeah, well,
We've got house vents, and
Yeah.
if the house vents aren't enough, that vacuum would clear all the cracks in the house, and you could have plenty of air.
yeah, I'll look into that. Yes.
So, I mean, you could cap those very easily for
I-
winter.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah.
very inexpensive.
It's not the cost of it, it's the maintenance of it, which we already have enough to do, and I don't need to go around capping
And those are on
who's
private
home,
property.
and they are the homeowner's responsibility.
No, I just think it would be very easy.
I was gonna ask about kind of like capping kind of a thing. You know how when you're trying to protect your bushes in the winter time and you put those little teepees over them and wrap them in burlap so that the weather, can you do that to your candy cane so that there's still air in there?
Yes, you can, you can do what you feel you want to do, as long as it has to be exposed to us. So meaning like, you can't box it in,
Well,
you can put a teepee there.
that's what I meant.
Yeah, you can do, sure you can do that.
Because that was, because
Sure.
our neighbors is, it's where the big drift comes.
Yes. Yeah, then in that case, sure,
I mean,
absolutely.
and the drift is, even if there's only a few inches of snow, the drift is always feet high.
Yes, yes,
I have a question about the snowplow people.
that's,
Are they going to be aware of where these candy canes are? Because for instance, my very next door neighbor,
yeah,
there's no way we could keep that clear because there was literally, they were taking the snow in big bucket loaders and dumping it. And
that's an excellent
high,
point. Yep,
crusted ice, so how are they gonna know where the candy canes are?
yeah, that's an excellent point. Newbury and Newburyport contractors and DPS employees will have an idea of where these candy canes are and not to bury them. I can't guarantee you that they won't, but
But maybe if there's some that are prone to being used for, getting buried by snow because of where they're located, maybe those are the ones that we could mark.
They have to mark it.
I know, but I mean,
My neighbors, that's where they push all the snow, because there's only 4 houses on it.
Where are you?
Very tiny, Louise Street.
yeah,
It's 4 houses, it's very narrow,
Yeah.
there's nowhere to put the snow to begin with, so they push it over on.
Are they
my
home?
neighbor's property. They're home year round, yeah, but, I mean, they go away sometimes, or they work and things, and,
right.
it's,
Yeah, that's something we'll have to look into.
we'll look into that.
Yeah.
Louis Street, you said?
yeah.
Huh?
We're looking at the vacuum system,
Yeah,
putting it in. The reason we went with all the candy canes is nobody wanted to go into a house and find they didn't have a good air vent in their house.
yeah,
And condemn the house and make them to put the plumbing to code.
Mhm.
Because they figured half or 3/4 of the island homes weren't plumbed correctly. That's why we ended up with the candy canes in the first place.
well, you're absolutely correct. I mean, some people have 1-inch house,
Well, I was there in all the meetings, and that was the reason, the candy cane.
yeah,
When we had all the toilets using 24 hours a day here,
yeah,
our candy cane had 30 feet of snow on it,
yeah,
but we have a good vent.
right. Yes,
I noticed that you have a map of who's hooked up with whom.
Say that again?
I said, you mentioned that you have a map of who's hooked up with who.
Yeah.
I think it's imperative that we should know what quad we're hooked up.
Yeah, again,
And a lot of times it's obvious, but other times it isn't. I mean, last winter, there was confusion because of that.
yeah. So, again, if you contact me, I will give you a list of your house and your neighbors. There's no need for you to know the entire island.
Right,
Okay.
right. I mean, everybody should be contacted and
If they want,
informed.
if they want the contact
Well,
information,
they should, without even being contacted. In an emergency, they should know.
it doesn't even have to be an emergency. Once this is up and running, which again, it's at the 95% stage. Once it's up and running, it'll be on the city website for all to view.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes.
So, just commenting on what this gentleman was talking about, the candy canes. So, do we get some kind of relief from our vent in our homes with the candy canes? Do we get a little bit of relief with that?
Yeah, it depends.
I know if we had the proper vents,
Yeah.
which it calls for 3-inch
Yeah.
vent going up for your house, if we all had that, we wouldn't even need the candy canes. We'd be fine. We'd have that positive pressure.
Yeah, I'm not gonna answer that right now. Until, I mean, we'd have to speak with AirVac on that. To the best of my knowledge, they would still require the candy cans. In every project they do, they require candy cans. Yep.
Can we, like, if we come to a winter with the snowing, can we get a map for here and leave it here, and then people can walk in and out of the door and they can look at it and say, that's where I am and that's where the vent is? So I can get one for here and keep it in the back room?
Yep,
and
once
pull it
we're
out
completed
there?
with it, yep.
Yeah, absolutely, Ron, that's a good idea, thank you.
I know you guys have worked very hard, right from the beginning. Right from the beginning when this thing went in. You're out in front of my house jacking out the pits that I never was for to begin with. But I'm also concerned, after you get the surface area done to work,
Yeah.
are the pipes in the right places? The rest of the system wasn't put in right either.
Yeah, but-
Airbag said the wrong pipes, the wrong gaskets.
Yep, but that,
Have you had any trouble with the underneath that's warm? We got a 13-foot cellar over there with the heart of the system in it.
yeah.
And it's got 2 pumps in it. And if they don't work underwater, they're not going to be any good.
Yeah, currently that's fine, that's fine.
Then what does the AirVac say about that?
It's to their spec, so I'm assuming they're gonna think it's okay. Yes,
I just want to make a comment about this gentleman's statement about the venting. I have tried venting in my house, but I'm so close to the vacuum station that when there's a problem, it sucks all of my heat traps dry. So that's clearly an indicator that it needs more venting than just what's coming out of my house. And it may be dependent on how close you are, but candy canes are definitely necessary for part of the system to function.
right, thank you.
So, when my candy cane
Is that it? Yes.
What do you foresee for problems as far as this winter? Is it just the valves getting frosted up, or?
I don't see any problems this coming winter, unless we have the same winter that we had last year. It's not the functionality of the system, it's not the operation of the system. It's that when you have 110 inches of snow in 4 weeks, that's it. You have to get to the components in which to fix the issue. If you can't get to the components, and we're in sub-freezing temperatures, yeah, in all likelihood it'll happen again. Yes?
Is there any concern about those raised valves that they'll get ripped up at the house?
The raised diversion valves, that they get those up.
Yeah, no. So we did it we started off with a gradual up and down, so it's kind of coming in at 2 and going out at 2.
The plows will run over them nice and easy,
Yeah.
there won't be any issues.
Our contractor said that we're fine. It's such a gradual, they're not really like speed bumps, they're just kind of like whoop-de-doos. Good.
So, I mean, as you can see, we still have more to do in terms of balancing the system. We're hoping that ultimately we can come up with a way to keep the water out of the valve pits, or ways that we can, keep them from freezing. So this is why we're working with this PhD engineering program at MIT, And, we'll keep you posted, but in the meantime, one of the most important things is the fact that we have the system now, to a place where we can get to the components of the system where we couldn't find them last year under all the stuff. So that makes our response faster, which also should help in terms of being able to get to things before they freeze solid again. Just a couple things on the water system. The flushing of the hydrants will happen next week, or start next week. It will take about a week on the island, Dan? Roughly. And on 26th and 28th Street, anybody here from that street? Well, we did have some trouble last year on top of the sewer system freezing, with a couple of those mains freezing because they weren't installed deep enough. And those will be
Next week as well.
next week as well. Those will be dropped deeper into where they should be in terms of the water system. So let's take a minute and talk about our emergency management, our response from last year. You'll notice that there are two pieces of information here, and what we're trying to do is proactively collect data on every single home on the island. We know last year that once we were in the throes of losing the sewer system, we didn't have contact information for everybody. And so we're trying to get as much contact information. So if you have a neighbor who's elderly, that you can bring this to them, the sheet, and get it back to either Newbury or Newburyport town city halls. We're going to set up a database that will be available on both Newbury and Newburyport. So we appreciate that if you could fill that out, and especially for people who are leaving the island for the winter. We really need to know if they have someone who's taking care of their home, or if someone local can have access if we should need be. The yellow card over there has, please take it, put it on your refrigerator, and that has all the emergency contact information. And also, we'd like you to sign up for announcements, but I'm going to leave that for our chief and emergency management director to pick up from here. Chief?
Thanks, Mayor.
So you're not going to mail any forms to anybody?
Of course, we'll look at what we have now, what we've collected tonight,
Okay.
and then the rest will go out in the mail.
Actually, let us know if you want to put them physically in other people's mailboxes.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. From the side of emergency management, and I can't tell you anything about sewers, although I know more now than I ever thought I would about Plum Island sewer. But talking from the emergency management side, the issues we had last year, a lot of it revolved around communications. And we want to be able to get information out to you, which is why we're asking for your information. We're talking about, if you look in the back of the room, how to sign up for the alerts, how to sign up for Code Red, so that you get that information directly to you. We're going to put regular updates up on the website, but through all of these multiple channels of communication, we hope to get the word out to you, to try to keep you better informed. Last year, you probably didn't know who to call, and when you did call, you were put off 2 or 3 times because we didn't have an organized system. And we weren't really utilizing the incident command system last year, where it seemed like nobody was in charge. This year,
Well, I don't know about that.
somebody was in charge. I can tell you. This year, and all we can do is improve on that system, and I can tell you with great confidence that as Chief Riley sits next to me, and Nate's here, your fire chief, and the public works director, we all work together now as a team. We're sharing information. We're on the phone with each other all the time, talking about plans for the winter, what we're going to do. And it's not just snowstorms, it's Plum Island issues or Newburyport, Newbury issues of any kind. Hurricanes, tornadoes, anything that might hit us, we need to have a plan, an all hazards plan, so that we know how to react and how to react and mitigate that system, either evacuate the island, shelter in place, whatever it is we have to do to help out the residents of Plum Island and the community as a whole. So we're practiced to death. So we're communicating, we're talking about it. So anything that affects the island will have an incident command system component to it, but it'll be kind of a unified command where we'll work together making decisions on where we're going to go. When the phone calls start, let's say there's a problem, worst case scenario, you have the phone numbers on your yellow sheet, who you'll call if there's a problem with your system. When it starts getting to the point, that phone number, when you call it right now, is going to dump to Newburyport Police Department. So that somebody's there to answer the phone. When the calls volume gets to the point where the police department can no longer handle it, it's taking away from their other duties, we're going to open and staff the Emergency Operations Center on Low Street. That phone number will then dump to a live person in that building, staffed until for the duration of the event. So when you call, you're going to get somebody live, you can ask some questions. We'll have people in the EOC representing all of the departments from both towns, and we'll be able to answer those questions and send somebody in your direction to solve that issue. We'll have a running log on all of the issues. We'll know what's going on. We didn't have that in place last year. The people at City Hall, the mayor and her staff did all they could to keep track of those calls and try to make the system work. Our job is to find a better way to improve that system, and I think we've done that. The EOC never opened last year. Emergency Operations Center never opened for the duration of the event. This is going to be a lot different. It will open. There is somebody in charge. You're looking at us. So we're hoping that we improve the system. We're hoping that the new relationships between Newburyport and Newbury are going to make things a lot easier for you. Any questions or information?
Just in case phones go down, we have an electronic sign, and we have the release paper, bulletin board information here, that we know we can always walk here and get the information.
Absolutely.
Sounds great.
Peter Hall's always been very generous about us putting messages on the bulletin board and on his sign.
And then should we
Well,
have
that really
a
became our
sign?
incident command last year, if you remember, and this is where, Lisa Balchuk was here, and, we staffed it during the height of the crisis. We were here, all day. We had other Red Cross and other services here, and hopefully we won't have to go to that level of support here on the island, but we are prepared to do so if we need to.
And I want to emphasize the system's in place. It's not just sewer issues. It's for any issues, any emergencies that may befall the cities or the town of Newbury. This is how we're going to operate. So this is how we can do it. Sir?
Yeah, Chief, I'm just wondering what we have to do up there, getting away from the sewer system, because you are the chief of the fire department, and I know the island gets inundated with snow.
Yes.
Is it a good idea for homeowners to kind of notice where the hydrants are around the area and maybe help out a little bit, kind of shovel them out, if they can? I know there's a lot of problems with the snow on the island, but is that a good idea as far as the fire department is concerned?
Oh, absolutely. We used to do things like adopt a hydrant program, and people notify, look, see where the hydrant is for your property close to you, and do whatever you can to keep it clear. Also, watch the plowing contractors, not just the city, but the private contractors that may plow out your neighbor's driveway and cover your hydrant. Keep an eye on them and make sure that doesn't happen. If it does happen, let us know, because they're not supposed to do that. So we make sure that we have those emergency, but on hydrants and fires, we don't have any issues. Every time that we go to a fire, we look for water supplies, both in hydrants and tank trucks. Should we have a fire on the island, both, whether it's in Newbury or Newburyport, both fire departments in Newburyport and Newbury will be notified at the same time. They'll both respond to the incident. They'll respond with both our regular apparatus and our tank trucks to make sure we've covered all of our bases. So, man.
I'd like you to talk a little bit more about what you've done in terms of talking about sheltering in place issues. I think there were a lot of issues last year in terms of sort of health issues that could have been addressed differently, and I think they could be planned for differently. So, for example, having a communication about if there's something going on with the sewer, what kinds of things can people do when they're staying in their home to be managing that safely? I mean, I heard all kinds of stories about what people were doing with things, and I was constantly talking to the public health person. But there are a number of things that could be done. I'd be happy to work on a committee. My background's in public health, and I think that we just didn't have, we weren't communicating how people could safely stay at home. Even though you didn't want them staying there, they were staying there, and there were things that could have been communicated and people could prepare. The other concern I have is, I think there should be, I don't know how this could be done, but it feels like if we get cut off from the mainland, I know you have a truck here, but there are places around, it's, way at the other end of the island. Are there any first responders places that are, places around the island. So if people are trapped here and somebody has an emergency, how do we do it? We don't have something in place.
Well, the answer the first question first,
Okay.
if I remember.
Sorry.
We're gonna,
They come with the first responders who stay there.
we're gonna have, we're gonna work with our public health officers, and we'll gladly accept your help, and make sure that right information gets out. And we'll get the information to you and work with you, should you have an issue. We also, we had great help last year from area hotels and volunteered to help us out, sheltering people. They even emailed me last week to say, we're ready for you should you need us again. So those relationships, those valuable relationships have been established and those contacts. So we'll gladly accept your help, make sure the right information gets out. On fire protection and emergency issues on the island, right now the island is protected by the Newbury and Newburyport Fire Department's main stations off the island. Last year, or anytime there's a storm, and we believe that we're going to lose access to the island either through astronomical high tides or whatever it is, we try to put apparatus and manpower here on the island. Even if it's just for that tide cycle, they'll be here. When it gets to extreme cold, we can't leave fire engines out because they're water. We can't leave them out because the frozen fire engine won't do you any good. But we will try. Last year during the blizzard, not only did we have the ambulance station here from Newbury, along with Newbury police officer, we had a Newburyport forestry truck in the mosquito building overnight for the duration of the blizzard, the heavy blizzard, just to make sure we had somebody on the island. So it's our intent to do whatever we can to make sure people are here if we think we're going to lose the main road, or the response time is too great because of the storm or blowing snow or losing the road for us to get here to actually do any good, so we'll station on the island. The problem with stationing on the island is we have no shelter. We have had a haul to get in and get out of the weather, but our vehicles stay outside. And that's not conducive to leaving the we don't want a cold ambulance with medications in it. We don't want that out in the snow. We can't leave fire trucks out in the cold weather. We're working on someday getting shelter on the far end of the island. We can actually have fire trucks and ambulances and police cars down here covered out of the weather so that they can respond to emergencies on the island.
This is to the mayor, so if somebody has a question for you, I can, you might have to.
Any other questions? Sir?
How are you going to communicate with us at Pitt or Better and keeping the snow plowed out of here and making sure that we all know what's going on here? Because I never know. I try to get the place ready for you and have the doors open and the heat on and make sure the generator works, but nobody ever communicates with me until it's the last moment.
Chief, you want to take that one?
Well, obviously, Ron, when there's a snow emergency, we try to keep this plowed out. We contact you directly. If you need a different method of contact.
Well, like this last winter, we weren't getting plowed out. And
I don't think very many places around here we're getting plowed out.
No, but this is the most important place to keep open, especially when you have your guys here, your trucks here, you know what I mean? The pile was huge out front.
Right, it was just falling so fast, we couldn't get rid of it fast enough, but we did maintain it open as much as we could to keep emergency personnel on the island.
But I'd like to have a little more communication.
Absolutely.
You know, what's going on and what we can do and what you can do.
Then you can sit down with Chief Leclerc and I, and we can come up with a plan.
Yeah.
That, absolutely, if that's an issue, we'll definitely address it.
Definitely.
Thank you.
My question is about the reimbursement forms that we filled out last year. My lawyer told me not to sign what you gave us, so then I couldn't get reimbursed. Is there a way you can review that so that our lawyers are more comfortable with it? And I'm happy to call you later.
Yeah, could you come, I think you should come in and talk to me about that. Is that the same for other people?
Yeah,
in
he
terms
said,
of
don't sign it, it's not worth the money you're going to get reimbursed because you're giving away if they find a problem later that's connected to your section. So I was told not to sign mine.
I wasn't aware of that, so please come in and see me. Set up an appointment and we'll talk about it further. Thank you. Can we talk about snow plowing a little bit? I think that's something that
I think has always been an issue on the island. I know that despite the, last year, we were very fortunate to have the support of Pennsylvania, Maryland, and New York. And I don't know if we would have been able to get this system back up in 3.5 weeks if we didn't have that level of support in terms of helping us plowing and clearing the island. And I know that normally it's just between, our two communities. So I just wanted to have a little bit of a conversation about snow plowing and concerns, issues that we could talk about. Tony, if you could just sort of talk about where we are at this point.
Yeah, the city has hired another contractor. We just have one contractor that did the plowing on the island last year. We have two contractors now. One's going to be on the Old Point side, and the other one will be on Northern Boulevard. And all the vehicles that will be on the island that plow for the city will have magnetic logos on it to justify that they're from the city of Newburyport. So there's no justification of saying somebody pushed the snow into my driveway. You'll know who did it now because they'll have logos on the side of their vehicles. So we're here to help you if you have questions and if you have issues on the way things are plowed. Everybody knows the highway barn number.
Question.
Sure.
So you know on the island, the snow drifts are a huge issue,
Yes.
especially in Reservation Terrace. So as a counselor, obviously I have connections and I can call you immediately. Excuse me, what do residents do? How do they get in touch with you?
The residents, all they have to do is call the DPW dispatch office, and it's manned 24 hours during a snowstorm.
Okay.
Our administrative assistant's there, and she will answer the phone, and she'll dispatch everybody to where they need to go.
And you know that if something happens, and this happened last year because it was extraordinary, and that they were a little overwhelmed at, the highway department down in, Perry Way and Newburyport. Calls also came into the mayor's office, and that we responded also in terms of working cooperatively with that. So but then, as the chief said, we will also have emergency ops open if we, as another communication point that wasn't available to us last year. So I think we'll do a better job in terms of being able to be responsive, because I know there were streets that were in really bad shape last year, and there were some seniors, people with health issues. It was of concern. So, again, these are the kinds of things that we'd like to know on these sheets when you fill them out. And please get them back to us as soon as possible, because we're going to start this database within the next, by next week, we're going to start building this database.
For the Newbury residents,
I've never had any problem with snow plowing until last year, and I recognize it was extreme really last year. But there's a few streets that got clobbered, and we had a new plower, and I understand that you didn't have the equipment. I've never had a problem out here with snow plowing. But Grant Street got clobbered because they didn't have a good sign. They still don't have a good sign. You can't read it.
Oh, Grant Street sign itself?
Yeah, that's right off.
Okay. That's great.
It still doesn't have a good sign.
We'll get your sign. That's important.
snow plowing issues for Newbury residents. We have a new highway superintendent, James Surratt, who's in attendance tonight. And
Where is he?
oh, James, can you stand up? All the people over here. What we've done is James and I have worked. James and the police department have worked closely. We understand that during snowstorms, all his crew is out on the road. So if you're calling the Newbury Highway Department, you're getting an answering machine, and people get frustrated. So now your calls will come directly into Newbury Dispatch. Call the police department, and we're dispatching for the highway department, so we can get messages and concerns to the plow operators in real time. So you won't have to wait for someone to come back to the office and listen to the message. And I'm sure James can talk more about snow plowing operations.
Yeah, and that works pretty good. The PD can get right a hold of us, and we can usually get right to wherever the problem is. And we've also added equipment down the island, and we have access to 2 snow blowers instead of the 1 last year, and 6 more triaxles. If we get the snow, we can haul it out of here faster than we did last year.
So is this yellow sheet is only for Newburyport residents? Or, and Newbury residents call different numbers?
They call, if you're a Newbury resident, for snow plow, but for anything related to the water and sewer system, we wanted everyone to have that information for Newburyport. But we work together. The island is, so if you happen to call the police station and you're in Newbury, we have to hit that number because something's happening, not to worry, we will take care of you. You know, that's why we're all here together as a team. So I
For
don't.
example, the database, the white sheet, should Newbury residents fill it out also?
Oh, yes, we're asking them absolutely to do that because we're gonna have the same database. So no matter which point you call, we all have the same information. And we can run through our list and figure out where the person lives, what the issue is.
My neighbors are asking me, well, we're up on the north end of the island, North Reservation Terrace. Will we always be the last one cleared if the whole system goes down, or? Yeah, I think it's true. Or it could be different years, or?
No, you will be the last.
It's the way of pulling the system back up, it's a vacuum system, as we talked about last year. You start and you move your way.
We didn't know if like the southern end of the island would get done last, but it's always going to be the northern last.
Yeah, no. It all depends on, so if the entire island went down, then I can't answer that. If Northern Boulevard goes down again, then yes, you will be the last because of the way that we have to get it back up on. If Southern and Northern go, it's whoever's closest.
Okay.
So we pick an area and we work that one area before we go to another area.
Jeff Walker, Chair of the Board of Selectmen in Newbury, and I would like to thank two groups of people. First, I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. And then I would like to thank the management team that's here from my town and obviously moving forward. I have to say one thing. Having you people here tonight is the beginning of the communication. Communication seems to be one of the larger issues. I mean, I've learned a lot tonight. I mean, one of the foremost plumbing experts probably in the Northeast just enlightened me to the fact that some of the problems in these things are because the vents and houses aren't big enough. So we have complicated areas, complicated designs, complicated problems on the line. I can say this as chair of the board, and Madam Mayor and her team, and everyone from the fire chief to the highway, Tony and James, they're doing the very best they can. This is on tape. This is the beginning of the communication. If you have any problems for our town or for Newburyport and you want your contact information on register and you're afraid of it, bring it to town hall. But communication is the best way that everyone has spoken terrifically clearly tonight. Try to tell your neighbors. We will give you the tape here if you need it for your cable. This is the beginning of what's hopefully a warm winter.
I just want to thank everybody for coming. I'm Jim Kellerhorst, your state rep. Some of you are state reps, so we're happy to be here to help you out any way we can, whether it's plow trucks from Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Hopefully we don't need them again.
Use one of those big, what are those called?
Snow thrower?
The snow thrower?
The snow thrower, yeah, that's right, the snow melters. Red But we're here to help you out as well. You can, Madam Mayor can get in touch with us and we can be here to assist at a moment's notice. In fact, I was just communicating with Brad about the monies that you had mentioned earlier when you addressed the audience this evening. And we'll be sure to get that money to you ASAP. So to help out with the remediation efforts here on the island. But feel free to reach out. Thank you.
And Jim has an office near City Hall, office hours there, so he's easy to get access. You can access him or obviously through his website. And he was here, if you remember, he was here last year, digging out candy canes on one Saturday all day too. So he's been very helpful too.
Thank you. Thank you all.
So we will meet again as the need arises, but please be sure to reach out to all of your neighbors and let them know about communicating with us. Take extra of those yellow